Today we geek out about exchange. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lee from Geek City USA here, and today we are going to talk about a game called Exchange. Now, Exchange is a stock market style game where you are influencing the market and buying and selling stocks and trying to end the game with the most net income. Now, I'm going to take you over here. I'll give you a brief overview of how the game is played, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on the game. All right, here we have Exchange set up for a 3-player game. And if you look here, when you start the setup, you're going to have the market value for each of the banks, the insurance, and bonds set to 50. And each character is going to get a character card. Now, if you look here, every character card is named, and they all have a difference. So like in this case, this player starts with 10 shares of banks, 3 of insurance, 3 of bonds, and $200 cash. And you look here, and like this other player, for example, gets a different mix, 8 shares of banks, 6 shares of insurance, 4 shares of bonds, and $100 cash. So it's different from character to character, and it is all balanced out, so the cash difference to the share difference, it's all an even starting point. The game is going to take place over 5 rounds with a market close at the end. And during your turn, there are going to be 3 phases that take place that everybody's going to do one at a time. There's also a lobbyist, which will give you a bonus in phase 3, which I'll talk about. And this will go to the player with the most amount of money. And then there's a market forces, which is going to randomly change the market. Like in this case, most bought stock is -1. So this is going to reveal each turn, and it's going to be a surprise for every player. There is one caveat, however, whereas at any time, any player may spend $50 to take a look at the top card on the market forces deck. And then they can then read it and see that banks are going to go up 2, so the stack of the banks will go up 2, and they can put it back down on the top of the deck. So they have just purchased a bit of insider information on that. Now this is a bubble here. So if at any point this goes to the end, let's say that banks goes up to 90, it will wrap around to 10 the next time it has to increase. So you have to be very careful that your stock doesn't overinflate because you may make plans to sell when something's at 80 and somebody may increase it too, so it'll flip over to be worth 10. Another thing too, you only go up to 90 and 10 for 5 to 6 players. In this case, a 3-player game the bubble will be from 20 to 80. The game is going to take place in phases. So if you look here, for phase 1, everybody will have this envelope, which is secret information, and they will take a look, and every player is going to pick which stock they are going to interact with. Banks, insurances, or bonds. And this will be a secret selection, so you will pick, like let's say for example, this character has a lot of, started with a lot of banks. So you see here we have 10 of them. And everything's kind of worth in the middle, so maybe we want to sell some of our banks off while they're worth 50. So what this player can do is go ahead and put banks in here, and then they would place this face down. And then the other players would do the same. So player 2 has kind of middle of the line on everything, but maybe they want to work to increase the value of bonds or lower the value of bonds even, what have you. We can figure that one out. So we'll set that one face down, and then player 3, we'll just randomly pick one. We'll say they're doing bonds as well. And then what will happen is everybody is going to reveal at the same time. So we will say, oops, I didn't have to pull these out. We will say, okay, player 1, player 2, and player 3. So this player is working in banks, and these 2 are working with bonds. So now everybody knows that somebody's intent is to work with a specific stock here. They're going to influence a specific one. So that right there is going to change maybe what you plan to do during the next phase. Now for phase 2, each player is going to decide whether they are going to buy or sell and how many. So for example, let's see, we'll look here, and this player 1 here, he wants to work with banks. So he's got 10 banks, they're worth about 50. So let's say it's early in the game, so he's gonna choose to sell 2 banks. So he'll go ahead and pick sell 2 here, and we will put them into this envelope. Much easier to do when you're not standing next to a camera. And we'll place that face down. This is all hidden information, of course. And this player is working with bonds. So we'll look, and maybe they want to buy some bonds. We'll just say buy one. And again, this is all not really going through strategy on this, just trying to show you the core mechanics of the game. And then player 3 is working with bonds as well, and let's say that they have a bunch of them. They're going to sell off 3 of them. Or at least that's their goal. So once you have all planned what you're going to do for phase 2, everybody goes ahead and reveals simultaneously. And you will see now, you will know what your opponents will do. However, you're not going to know the amount of stock they're going to buy or sell. So like player 1 right now, we know he's going to buy or he's going to sell banks. We don't know how many. Is he going to sell 1 of them? Is he going to sell 9 of them? Same thing. Player 2 is going to buy bonds. We don't know how many. And player 3 is going to sell bonds. We don't know how many. Now for phase 3, this is where everybody gets to influence the market. So you see everybody has an opportunity to raise or lower one of the stocks. Now, if you, in the previous turn, and again, this doesn't apply to turn 1 or to the final round, the person with the most amount of money gets the lobbyist, and the lobbyist would give you an extra chance to influence the market. So player 1, we'll look here. Again, he is going to sell bank stock. So obviously we're going to want to sell banks high. So he's going to go ahead and raise the price of banks by 1. So we will go ahead and put that face down. And then player 2 is going to do the same. Let's see, he was going to buy bonds. We're going to want bonds to go down in price because you want to buy low and sell high, right? So we'll lower bonds. Put that face down. And then player 3 was going to sell bonds, and he's going to obviously want to up the price of the bonds, or maybe he knows, let's see, that player 1 is going to sell banks, and he is going to want to drop the price of banks. Maybe he doesn't want player 1 to get the bonus on that one. Or maybe on his next turn, he might plan on working with insurance. He might want to use this turn to influence the insurance. So then everybody's going to make their selections, and then they're going to reveal simultaneously. So we see banks +1, bonds -1, and banks -1. Now in addition to this, this is going to be when you're going to reveal the market forces. So we will look and see here, and we'll see rich reserves. The first bank of the United States reserves reached record highs, resulting in an increase in profitable loans to private businesses, banks +2. So now we're going to go ahead and modify the market board. So we're going to see we have banks +2, banks +1, banks -1, and bonds -1. So these two are going to cancel out, so we'll know the banks are going to go up 2. We are going to see here that bonds are going to drop 1. And this is what the market board will look like. So now at this point, we're going to look here, and we are going to reveal what everybody picked at phase 2 and adjust their market board as appropriate. So we'll take a look here, and player 1 was going to sell 2 stocks of the banks. So we'll look here, and he has 10, so we'll move that down to 8. And banks are worth 70, so he's selling 2 of them, so he'll get 140 bucks. 110, 20, 30, 40. Whoops, and I'm just gonna make a mess. And you can take this money and put it in his stack of money. Player 2 is going to buy 1 share of the bonds. So that was actually not a bad buy for him, so we'll jump that up 1 to 5. And that's gonna cost him 40 bucks. So he'll go ahead and take 40 bucks here and turn that in. And finally, this player here, he decided he was going to sell 3 shares of bonds. Well, that was kind of a bummer for him because bonds is at 40, selling 3 shares. So that's going to make him a whopping $120. So here's 120 bucks. And we have now doled out the money. So now going into round 2, player 1 has the most amount of money, so they are going to get the lobbyist. So that's going to go here, and that's going to give them the bonus on phase 3. So now, if we want here, we can start, and we will do another quick example of the next round. So we'll say player 1 here for phase 1 is going to look here, and banks are still pretty high, but I think maybe he's going to try to buy some bonds. He's got a lot of extra money, so we will buy bonds. We will put this face down. Player 2 is going to, maybe he's going to sell some banks because His banks is up there. You know, he's got 8 of them here, and he kind of lost out a little bit last round. I'll flip these up just so easy to see. And then this player here, he's kind of run of the mill in the middle on everything. So maybe he's just going to work in insurance. You know, why not? Oops. But he's also going to, let's just say for the sake of argument here, he's going to spend 50 bucks. He wants to know what the plan is for the next turn. So he's going to look here, and he's going to see market influence values increase from 1 to 2 this round. Oh, so he knows whatever's going to increase is going to increase double. So that's pretty interesting for him. So now we're going to flip these cards. Now, mind you, anybody else can do this as well. Anybody else can pay 50 bucks to take a look at that. So we're going to flip here, and we're going to see bonds, banks, and insurance. So now we will figure out how much of each. So he's going to work in bonds. You know, again, this is just all random. He is going to, so he's going to buy 5. We'll see if we can show somebody kind of getting messed over by the market change. This guy's working in banks. So he's going to try, let's say he's got 8 banks. He thinks the banks are pretty high. So he's going to sell his 8 banks at an all-time high. Or that's what it would appear anyway. And then player 3, he's working in insurance. Let's just say he's going to play cautious, he'll sell 2. So now everybody's going to flip over. We know that now. Player 1's buying bonds, player 2's selling banks, and player 3 is selling insurance. So now we go through here for phase 3, and player 1 is going to say, okay, well, I'm going to buy bonds. I want to drop the price of bonds by 1, because that'll help me. And then he's also going to look here, and maybe he's going to, maybe he's going to say, I bet you player 2 is going to increase banks, and I want to burst his bubble. So he'll set that down like that. That's what he'll pick for the lobbyist. So player 2 is going to look here, and he's saying, well, hey, I'm selling banks, so obviously I want the banks to increase here. And then finally, player 3, he's selling insurance. He's going to look at the other players and see what's going on. And he's going to drop, or actually no, he's going to raise the price of insurance. In fact, he knows that that's going to be good for him. So everybody's going to reveal this. And we'll reveal the market forces card. And we'll see, hey, it's 1 to 2 this round. So what's going to happen now is banks are going to drop, instead of 2, this is 4. And then, or I'm sorry, instead of 1, this is 2. And that's 2. So these 2 are going to cancel each other out. And then we're going to see bonds is going to drop 2. 1, 2. And then insurance is going to go up 1, or going to go up 2. Now, if I would have played this the right way, like let's say he played banks plus 1 as well, banks would have went up 4, so it would go 1, and it would hit the bubble 2, 3, 4. So banks are now only worth 40. Let's say that's what happened. So now we'll go ahead and we'll figure out here. He's buying 5 bonds at 20 bucks a pop. So that's $100. That is a good gig for player 1. So he's going to pay his $100 to get 5 of the bonds. So he's at 3, so he's at 8 now. So player 2 is going to sell 8 banks at 40 bucks a pop. So he's going to make 320 bucks. Not as much as he had hoped. So 320. And he is now out of banks. And then player 3 is selling insurance. He's selling 2. So let's drop his track by 2. And insurance is worth 70. So selling 2 is 140 bucks in his pocket. So we'll take 150 and we will put that 10 back. And then that finishes round 2. Now you'll continue on through the remainder of the rounds. And then finally, you're going to have the market closure phase. And during this phase, the lobbyist is not going to be usable. So we'll set the lobbyist aside. So we'll move this all back up here. Now at this point, each player gets one final turn to influence the market. So at this point, everybody would play their phase 3 cards again to see what they want to go up and down. And once everybody does that, now mind you, again, you're not going to use the lobbyist cards. We're not going to use the market forces cards either. So everybody would flip their cards, adjust the markets as needed, however they move, and then you would total up your net worth. And so you would count your cash, as well as you would look at your stocks and figure out how much they're worth based on the market values board. And then the person with the most money at the end of that is the winner. Now I'll also add here that there's a chance to go in debt and to go bankrupt, and there are cards that allow for that, and there's rules that allow for that. So just be aware that that's a possibility in the game. And that is Exchange in a nutshell. Now I'll take you back up top and I will give you my thoughts on the game. All right, guys, that was Exchange. So let's start by talking about the components of the game. So that was a prototype copy of the game, but I'll say that the player boards and everything were a very thick cardboard, and the cards were a very good quality as well, all the way down to the money. I thought it was a nice touch using small cards to use as the money. And as for the art, I thought the art was very thematic. It really felt like an old-fashioned, and I say old-fashioned like a old school New York or old school government kind of vibe with it, with all the fancy writing, very Declaration of Independence, and I thought it definitely fit the theme of the game. So on to the gameplay of the game. Now, the gameplay was broken down into multiple phases, and the phases were simultaneous. So no matter the number of players, whether you had 3 or whether you had 6, you're going to take your turns pretty much at the same time, and then you'll reveal at the same time. So there really wasn't a difference as far as time duration goes, whether you played with 3 players or played with a full 6-player count. And the gameplay was very smooth. It was very easy to pick up. So once you got used to what each of the phases did and you learned how what you did and could impact everybody else, it was really quick to move from phase to phase. Now the box says the game duration was about 35 minutes, and I think that was about accurate. We played in about 25 to 35, 40 minutes each game. The more we played with a set group of people, the quicker the games tended to go as everybody got used to the mechanics of the game. Now as for the audience of this game, I think this game is geared really towards a wide audience of player types. So this is a game that you can play casually with people who maybe aren't into a lot of games. It's not, I wouldn't call it a light game by any sense of the means, but it's definitely a game that's accessible to everybody. I was able to play this with my older kid. He's 11 now, and he was able to catch on very easily to the game concepts. And it's a game that you can play with, like I said, with casual gamers, as well as your heavier, heavy style gamers who are really into strategy games, because there is a meta game to it. So not only are you influencing the market, but you're also gaming your opponent as well. So you're not only doing what would be a best influence for you and a best choice for you, but you might want to consider what your opponents are doing, because you can impact their game negatively as well. And there's a lot of risk reward, because if you try to up your stock too much, you may burst your bubble, and that 9 shares of stock that you're hoping to sell for 80 bucks, you're actually selling for 20. So I definitely like that aspect of the game. And I think that, like I said, the audience, it's a very welcoming game to all player types and all player ages. As for the replayability factor of the game played really smoothly, and it was easy to introduce to players. And I generally found myself playing multiple games in a sitting. So you're not going to play one game and say, okay, we understand how to play, we're done. We found ourselves playing again and again, usually 2 or 3 times in a sitting, because the game plays so fast. So I definitely think there's a high replayability to the game. Not only that, you have different character cards that you can start out with, as well as you can even, if you wanted to, there's rules in the instructions on picking your own starting stocks, of what you have. So there's always room to vary the way you start and the character you start as. In addition, there are other rules for advanced play that include, like, if so many stocks are purchased, perhaps the value is going to drop or raise based on what the actions of all the players are. So that helped to add a little more flavor to the game. Typically, we only played with the advanced, some of the advanced variants a few times. We usually just played the standard game, and we had a good time with it when we were playing with it. So, based on that alone, we didn't get bored of the base game, and I think that's a testament to the game style itself. Now, all in all, this is a game that we've really enjoyed. It's a game that's made it to the table a number of times. It's easy to break out with casual gamers. It's really simple to teach. And based on that alone, I think this is a game that we will continue to play. So if you're interested in the theme of this game, I would definitely check it out. And also, I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're a fan of strategic games, because there's enough strategy in this game, and while it's still not rules heavy. So it's a strategic game that's light and quick and easy to learn. So if that's something that you think would interest you, I would definitely go check this game out. All right, guys, that's it. I'm Lee with Geek City USA. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Be sure to like and subscribe to our videos. Comment down below. Love to interact with you. And also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're out there as well, and we'd love to interact with you guys. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.